of a Grimm's fairy tale written by Kay Stone. And I'm going to tell it in 2 masks. Curious girl. I like to look at and explore everything. One day I said to my parents, I would like to go to see Mother Trudy, for I have heard she lives in an interesting house full of many strange things. My parents said to me, if you go to see Mother Trudy, you're no daughter of ours. But I was curious, and I was stubborn too, and so I disobeyed my parents, and I went off that very afternoon into the woods. I walked and walked, and then I came to a little stream, and when I stepped across it, then everything in the woods became darker and more gloomy. But I went on, for I was curious what would happen next. I found a little path, and I began to walk down the path. And by, I heard a terrible trembling behind me, and a sound like thunder. So I jumped off the path, and a great black horse came by, and a black rider, and then the sky became as dark as pitch, and I could see nothing, but I carefully crept with my feet, feeling for the path. And in this way I went along until a second horse came, and this horse was as red as blood, and when it roared by, the sky became the color of blood. And I went on again, thinking, now I am truly afraid, but I have come all this way, and surely I must see Mother Trudy now to make it worthwhile. So I went on, and didn't a third horse come, and that horse was as bright as the sky in the morning. And that horse went by, and then daylight came. And then before me in a little clearing was a little house. And somehow this house made me feel uneasy. And when I saw it was surrounded by a fence made of bones, then I became even more frightened. But I was determined to look inside. So I crept forward until I came to the window. And there I saw a woman covered in flame, but not consumed. And then she called my name. Well, I didn't want to go in, but I was powerless not to. And so I went in. Ah, said the woman, and now she looked quite ordinary. I have been waiting for you a long time. Now you will give me warmth. But first tell me why you are shaking. Oh, I saw such terrible things. I saw a white horse and a black horse and a red horse and great riders they had on them. Oh, that was just my dark night and my red morning sun and my bright day. And I saw a woman covered in flame. That was the witch in her own form, and now you have seen it. And with that, she grabbed me, and she turned me into a log, and she threw me on the fire, and she began to warm her hands with me. But something happened, another transformation. I turned into sparks that came from the fire, and the witch gathered these sparks together in her hand and formed them into a bird. free. But that is not fair, I said, for you are older than me and you know many more stories. Well, then I will give you all the time you need to find one, and you may go anywhere in the world. And with that, she carried me outside into the forest, and she let me go free. And I began to fly all over the world. And to my surprise, I could hear the people's voices in all their languages, and I could understand them all. And I could even understand the language of the animals and the trees and the birds and the stones. And I began to collect all of their stories. And some of the stories were small, and some were long, and some were tragic, and some were simple, and some were funny. But all of them had truth in them. And when I had gathered all the stories, I came here to this very room, to you very people. And I said to you, will you tell me your stories? And you answered me, yes, we will tell you our stories. Will you tell me your stories? Yes, we will tell you our stories. And I took all of your stories too. Now I thought, surely I will have a story that Mother Trudy has not heard before. So I flew back to her window and I said to her, here I am with all my stories. Well, tell me, I can hardly wait to hear. And I told her all the stories of the people and the animals and the birds and the trees. And I even told her your stories. But when I finished, she said, well told and good stories, but I have heard them all before you were even born. And I opened my mouth to speak, but I had no more stories. So I opened my mouth to cry. And out of my mouth came, unbidden, my own story. I said, but I was just a curious girl, and I disobeyed my parents, and I came into the forest. And I told her everything that had happened to me. And at first it was like a little river, and then it was like a great torrent coming from me. And then she said to me, now you have told me a story that I have not heard before. Yes, I said, and it is one with no ending, for I am still living it. And then I had met her conditions, and I began to change. And I began to lose my bird form. And the curious girl became then a human being again. But she was not the same human being that she had been when she came to Mother Trudy's cottage, for she had spent many years gathering the stories, and she was a mature woman now. And so she left Mother Trudy, but she left all the stories she had gathered from the trees and the plants and the people and the animals and the birds, and even your stories. And she took them all away with her, and she used the truth in them to make a good and wonderful life. And you know, if she is not dead, she is living that life still.